Welcome to Women in Paint. Whether your paint story is dripless or an old school mix of project management, business ownership, or modern estimation, the stories of women in paint are now part of the industry's rising success. We'll educate, encourage, and promote diversity and gender equality by giving you a behind-the-scenes look at our proven skills, business acumen, and driving force that propels anyone to find meaningful opportunities and a career path that challenges lives through paint. Now let's welcome your host, Michael Cheney.
All right, welcome to the show. I am excited today because I've got my good friend Karen Moreno on with me. And listen, we're going to talk all about her journey in the painting business. We're going to talk about how you work with a spouse, right, Karen? We're going to get into that. And then we're going to talk about some women in paint stuff. So Karen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Michael, for thinking of me and definitely asking me to join. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. All right. So listen, I know your backstory. I know you've come from the education world. You somehow, like all of us, ended up in this crazy painting industry. Tell the story. How did you go from education, helping kids, to now building this business with Jose?
Yeah, so I was in education for 10 years, and it was always kind of in the back of my head because my Jose has always ran the business, and it was kind of always one of the things where we talked about, like, hey, maybe one day you might want to transition. And I was just kind of like, yeah, no, I don't know if we could work together. And so eventually, after I had a really rough year in education, as unfortunately a lot of educators do, and I said, you know what, this is it. Like, I need to do it. And I literally resigned. Like that morning, I woke up and I was like, I think I should just do it. Like, I felt like it was something that I had been wanting to do. I just hadn't build up the courage to do so, because obviously it's my career. I was a school counselor. I loved working with kids. And then that last day that I was allowed to resign, I literally woke up and I just typed up. I didn't even like think about it. I just kind of like opened up my laptop. I just started typing, and then I told Jose, I was like, hey, I resigned. And he was just kind of like, oh, okay, So that's really how it started. And then after that, I was so blessed to be able to get an email from the PCA. I want to say it was like maybe like 2-3 weeks after that, about the first Women in Paint event that was hosted in Nashville. And so I took it as a sign that it was the right thing for me to do at that time. So
that's amazing, right? And now you're on the Women in Paint committee. You help plan the events, which have turned out to be a great success. Let me just ask you, when you hit that send on that email, was it relief? Was it, oh my God, what did I just do? Do you remember what that feeling was?
yeah, I was definitely like, oh my God, like, what did I just do? Because not only did at that point I had to like tell my partner, who was also a school counselor, I had to text her and be like, hey, I just resigned. And then I had kind of just already talked about it with my principal at that time. And I was just like, hey, I think I'm going to, take some time away. And he was fine with it. He's like, hey, you got to take care of yourself. And it was just a very emotional year for all of us at that school. So I think they were very understanding. And so that was like my perfect opportunity. But I will be lying if I didn't say, like, I regretted it like 10 minutes later. And I was like, oh my gosh, just because, this was a 10-year career. Like I tell Jose this all the time. Like, I was on a set schedule for 10 years. Like, I woke up, I went to work I had to be there at 7:30. I left around 3:30 or so. Like, same holidays were off. So it was the same schedule for 10 years. So being able to adjust to something different was pretty hard. I won't lie.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I think one of the beauties about being in education, at least as you know, I grew up with a mom who was in the education system. It works well for parents, right? You've got similar schedules to your kids. It's manageable with childcare. So you go from that to I don't know, I'm just going to say hectic lifestyle of a painting contractor, or at least it can be. How has the adjustment been? Have you thought back like, hey, maybe I shouldn't have done that? Or are you embracing this and going for it? Where are you at right now?
I don't know how many times I quit on my husband. Like the first half a year, it was kind of like every other weekend I was like, okay, yeah, I'm done. I'm not doing this. I'm gonna go and, get my job back or whatnot. So it was definitely hard. It was hard adjusting. We have 4 girls.
Mhm.
Our girls are really involved, and one of them does soccer. The other one was doing club volleyball at the time. We have a 2-year-old now, and then a 5-year-old. So our household is wild, every day, 24/7, right? So it was really hard to adjust because I wasn't used to knowing what to do, right? So like I said, I had a set schedule for 10 years. So I knew my job very well. So I
Right.
knew going in what I needed to do. It was very structured. There was a lot of things that, obviously, in education, there's a lot of things that you need to do a certain way because of legal issues and whatnot.
Mhm.
So I knew what I needed to do. So jumping into administrative assistant, which is what I do now with my husband. So I run the back end of the business. I had no idea what I was doing. I think about it now that I definitely have gotten a lot better. And I'm like, I was wasting so much time on things that were not important. And I was like trying to make the office look cute, and because that's what we do in school. Like
Yeah.
we do our bulletin boards, and we make
Yep.
everything kid friendly and super cute. And I signed up to be like PTA mom, because now I was kind of like, okay, I'm definitely going to be like more involved with my kids' schools, and then but I'm also gonna run a business, which was honestly, like, I can't tell you how many times I had like mental breakdowns because I just put so much on my
Mhm.
plate. But it was
Mhm.
simply because I didn't know what was expected of my role at that
Yeah.
time, starting into it. And my husband didn't either, because he
Yeah.
was just kind of like, I'm just, getting jobs, we're doing them, I'm collecting checks, and then we're moving on along. There wasn't like a set structure. And what we, quote unquote, had was not structured well. So
Yeah.
that was also a headache in itself, trying to find the right people to help us clean up all that mess.
Yep. I mean, listen, I think pretty much all of us can relate to that. So you went from making the office space cute and maybe doing some decorating to creating the structure.
Yeah.
What does it look like now? You're in kind of the admin role. What does Jose do? And then talk about some of the shifts. I know you're kind of moving into a sales role as you grow. Kind of where are you guys at now?
Yeah, so I do all of the back end, right? So like I'm my title, we would say, would be the administrative part of the business. So I do all the billing. I do, I book all the appointments. I make sure that we're getting paid. I'm pretty much just making sure that we are compliant with the things that we have to do with our business. I am transitioning into the sales after the sales boot camp training that we took. I feel like that's kind of where I would better. I would fit better. And my husband, he's doing the project managing, but right now it's kind of he's definitely on the field 100% of the time, and sometimes we just alternate on doing proposals, just
Mhm.
because I want to be a little bit more confident about the products and the things that that you tell clients when you go and
Yeah.
you bid and you give them an accurate proposal. So I need to practice more on that to fully transition and hopefully be able to hire an office admin that can take over what I'm doing. Which
Nice.
I will say, Michael, I feel we had an office assistant a few years back, and that was one of the biggest mistakes that we did, was hiring
Mm.
someone when we did not know how to properly train them.
Yep.
And when I jumped on board, I told my husband, I said, listen, I am going to support you 100%, right? Like I'm completely, like, I had a career of 10 years. I completely let go of that. I'm transitioning to supporting you 100%, but we're going to get things done the right way. And if that means that we have to backtrack on
Yeah.
a lot of things, then you just have to understand that my end goal in mind is to be able to have a strong foundation, because we experienced a very rapid growth, like around 2019, 2020. and we had an office admin, and we just failed to train her properly because we
Yep.
didn't know what that role was all about, right? So it really
Yep.
was on us. It was on us because we saw her resume. We felt like she was highly qualified. She came in, and then we were like, okay, like you said you knew how to do QuickBooks, and you said you knew how to do this and X, Y, and Z. So like, show us. And it was kind of like, well, like, no, the other company like had this already structured. Do you guys have that? We were like, no. So that was one of the mistakes that we took, that we definitely made. But I'm glad that now I feel more confident in being able to bring somebody in to be able to train them on what I've been doing for the past year, and allowing them to like, obviously, like, monitor them and having them, and me feeling confident in answering them questions, or at least guiding them into where we can find the answers if we both don't happen to know. But I just feel like that was one of the things that I would say I'm mostly proud of, is to being able to structure that well, to hand it off to somebody else and continue that momentum that we need to obviously grow our business.
Yeah, man, I feel all of that. Everything you just said is everything I did the wrong way too. Like I got to a point where I'm like, oh, I need an admin. And while that might be true, but it's like, if you got everything up here in your head and you don't know how to convey that to someone, or you don't have a platform for them to work from, or man, it gets so chaotic, right? And it's like, you might even have like a well-qualified person, but if you don't have the structure to set them up to succeed, it can really, it can be a drain. And so I totally get all of that. And by the way, I've made that mistake multiple times over and over in all different positions, not just the admin position. So what now, or tell me this, what kind of structure, maybe just give one or two things. What kind of structure do you now have in place for the admin position, so that when you do bring someone in, like, what is something that you would train them on?
Definitely on QuickBooks. So that's our system that we use, which is so easy to, I feel, to navigate. Like, the way that Tanner built it, in my opinion, is very like, well put together. I find
Drip jobs.
drip jobs. Yes. What did I say?
QuickBooks,
Sorry.
but I picked it up. So because I was like, man, you think QuickBooks is easy? Jeez.
Oh no.
QuickBooks.
I was actually gonna say, like, it's like two different softwares, right? Like QuickBooks, where like you have no idea what in the world. Like, I was even scared to just match transactions to the right category, because I was like, wait, is this like an office expense, or is this like, like materials? Like, what is this? And then going to drip jobs, which is what we use. It is completely different, right? But I find it that with drip jobs, it's so much easier to work with. That's where we do all our billing. That's where we do all our appointment setting. That's where we're able to communicate with our clients. So that's where I'm able to track like how we're doing for the month, based on like what marketing we invested on. Was it something that gave us a good return of investment? So I love drip jumps, and I was on that chat with Tanner's team like almost every day when I first started. I went on YouTube and I looked at, certain videos, or even like the videos that they would send over were super helpful. So I think moving, being able to hire an office admin, being able to train them on that, that itself, that's like the biggest chunk of our operation side from our business.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, all right. So training on drip jobs. And then as you move into the estimating role, you mentioned you're going to, I know Jason Phillips boot camp. A little shout out to Jason, because he's got great training programs. So what is what's some of the learning curve that you think that you need to understand? So you probably got a great grasp on drip jobs, it sounds like. What's the learning curve for you, so that you feel like you really can excel in the estimating position?
So I think I need to get more, I guess, just more clarity or on the process of how things are done, right? we use trip jumps as well too for estimating. So we have our production rates already plugged in on there. So when I go and I estimate, I literally just measure, type in, the numbers on there, and it calculates everything. So I'm able to present an accurate proposal to my client right then and there, right? Where before it was like, oh, I'll send you an email, or I'll email it to you when I'm done. And it was like 2-3 days, or sometimes we would forget when we were so busy.
Yeah.
But I think what I really need, Michael, is to get that confidence of, because here's the thing, like I'm scared, and I tell this to Jose all the time, and he's always like, well, call me when you're there. And I'm like, no, like I want to look professional. Like I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
I don't want to call you, but I think I need to get used to like the lingo for sure, like the wording, the correct wording for things. I also need to be able to explain like the certain process on how we do things and what sets us apart from, our competitors. So I really think it might just be calling my Sharon Williams rep and being like, hey, give me a crash course on all the products that we use, why this is better than this one, or when this is appropriate to use over this. Because I want to be able to, and here's where my education degree comes into place, right? Or my experience. I want to be able to like educate my client on what it is that they're getting. Like I don't want to be like, I'll give you an example. I was just in a Zoom with one of my BNI members, and we actually gave him a quote to paint his kitchen cabinets. And then he like, I was talking to him on Zoom, and he's like, hey Karen, like I want you to see this. And he starts showing me that his daughter had painted the wall, his bedroom wall, with purple crayon. And he was like, but watch this. So as he's wiping it, like the paint's coming off too, right? So he was just like, he's like, what is this? And so I was able to tell him, because we actually painted our home with that type of paint, because we have 4 girls, right? So we were able to say, and so I felt confident in being able to tell him and why he should have used that paint or whatnot. But I want to be able to get more confidence in that area, especially for exteriors, because I want to be able to know, I want to be able to walk in there with confidence and my goal be to be able to educate my client on what it is that they're getting, so that they obviously go with us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And listen, like, because I know you a little bit, I know you're going to kill it in this role. One, I just think you're hilarious. You say you got the best personality, and you know what? I'm sure your education background lends you to like kind of this teaching, coaching type of thing. And I just know you're going to kill it. Let me ask you about this, because you talked about 2 important things that I think are important to address. One is production rates, and the other is on the spot estimates, which I know from my experience and just from talking to people that a lot of people don't have production rates. Now, I know that because people are using programs like Drip Jobs and Paint Scout, those things come packed full of production rates. But let's talk about that for a minute, because, when I was first starting all of this, I was doing a lot of the guesstimation, or to take a page out of Nick Slavic's book, the feelings plus data, right? I would go in there and say, well, I feel like this is going to be about 8 hours worth of work and a gallon. And then I would do job costing to see how close my guesstimation was. Now, as we've grown, we have do like you do. We measure and we input the information. So at some point you made a transition, I think probably from the guesstimation, like most of us, to production rates. How did that transition go, or were you always using production rates?
No, not at all. So we actually did not start implementing production rates until after we went to, I think it was Contractor Freedom. I want to say from Jason Phillips too. I can't remember if it was that one or Sales Bootcamp, but it was one of his events that he put together, right? And I remember when he started talking about that, and he started mentioning how a lot of people do it, right? And the reason why that doesn't quite work. But I will say, Michael, leaving my profession where I was getting a salary paid, right? Like taking it back just a little bit, our household income was completely different. So when I quit my job, and obviously like my paycheck started stopped coming in, we really had to be, and that's when I was like, wait a minute, like there's something going on, because we have jobs, like we're thankfully we're busy, but like we're
Yeah.
not, this is not like 1 + 1 is not equaling 2. So I started to kind of not, and it wasn't like I didn't even know it was production rates, but I just kind of started going over, because before we used to pay our guys by the day, right? Which is like
Mhm.
what people tell you don't
Yep.
do. And so
Yep.
we were doing that, and somehow we thought we were going to make it work. And so when I started kind of calculating that and then subtracting the materials, and I'm like, wait, like that's not, yeah, we didn't make any money on this. And I remember
Right.
my first project that I actually was doing the job costing, because that was the first thing that we added on to our drip jobs member account, was
Yeah.
the job costing. The first one that I actually went through and I put in how much we paid our guys and how much we spent on materials, we literally were negative like $1,200.
Yeah.
And so I was like, and at that point, I kid you not, I was like, yeah, I'm going back to work. Like, this is not going to work. And
Like, I
so
need that paycheck back.
yes. And so it was a lot of adjusting.
Yeah.
But I also think, it was a lot of being able to ask people like, hey, how do you do it? How are you doing it? Because the way that I'm doing it is definitely not giving me what I'm hoping it would.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first things that, and I will say I kept putting it off, because trying to figure out like your production rates, you have to have so much information, like how
Yeah.
much, how much your materials cost, and how much your like, if I'm paying a guy, I don't know, $30 an hour, let's just say, how long is it going to take him to paint a door from both
Yep.
sides, right?
Yep.
And so in like how much am I going to pay him to paint that, and then turn that into how much I'm going to charge my client, right?
Mhm.
So it was a whole lot of math trying to figure out. But I will say, Michael, and this is why I love, being a part of things like this that educate others that are on the same field as us. My husband has a good friend, Oscar. He's Milan Painting here in Fort Worth, and um, we went to. He was also one of Jason Phillips'
Mhm.
guys that went to his events. And so I was like, he's very I think OCD in that area. And so I told my husband, I was like, hey, ask Oscar if he can help me. And I said, tell him to come over to the house. I'm going to make him breakfast. And like, I want him to just kind of help me put this together,
Yeah.
because I'm a visual learner, right? So like, I need to see it. If you tell me over the phone, or if you try to guide me, I am going to get lost. So he came over and he was like, okay. And so he did all the math. He started helping me with that, which was such
Nice.
a blessing. I
Yeah.
give that to him. It was such a blessing. And at that point, it was kind of more of me practicing and trying to
Mhm.
update the numbers as we changed, or like our prices went up in certain materials. So that in itself. So if for anybody listening, asking for help in
Mhm.
this field, in this profession, is going to be the key, honestly, to success.
Yeah.
Getting rubbing elbows with people that are in the same field, or people that you are saying like, hey, one day I want to be in that same position, right? Or I want to grow my business to in that scale. Being able to pick their brains on certain things, like they're the experts. I can't tell you how
Yep.
many times I've texted Jason, and he's been able to respond, and he'll say, oh, do this or X, Y, and Z. Just people like you, like I've messaged you, we've shared information.
Mhm.
So that has been honestly my saving grace
Yeah.
as I
I'm with you.
transitioned, because I'm
I'm
like,
with you.
when I was in education, there was like 50 something school counselors, right? So I could
Yeah.
email them, we would call, we would meet once a month. So it wasn't, it was like the help was there. But moving into this role, I'm like, where do I ask for help? Like who can show me? So
Yeah.
yes, it's been interesting.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like once you kind of start making those connections, and I mean, we'll just mention the PCA or Jason Phillips training or all of the other things that are out there, you really do have to get involved. For years, I didn't know anyone. I didn't get involved. I honestly just didn't know how to get involved. And the moment you start getting involved, you meet people that you can call and get help from. You see the same people at the events. I mean, it really is an amazing community. And
Mhm.
it's really something that I think that we all need to take. We need to just lean into it because there's lots of resources. So we talked about production rates and how important they are. You do on the spot estimates, and I just want to mention that over the last year, my team started doing on the spot estimates. Before I started doing that, I had this huge hesitation of doing it on the spot. It was like this scary thing. But I think I just want to encourage people, push towards that, make the move. You have a higher close rate. I believe you're doing on the spot estimates too, right, Karen?
I'm trying. I don't think
You're
I'm
getting there.
always. Yes, I'm getting
Yeah.
there, especially
Okay.
because there's certain things that because we do repairs as well. So like I don't know how to quote, like if
Mm-hmm.
there's a hole in the wall, so certain things like that I will have to go back and send it to Jose, or like be like, hey, can you look at this? Like, how much can I charge for that? But I will say, Michael, the times that we've been able to, I think one of my first jobs that I closed was when I gave the proposal on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And also I love the way that a lot of the estimates that I've seen that were shared to me. I know Maggie, one time she shared one, and it was so thorough. Like there was
Mm-hmm.
so much detail in her proposal, and I absolutely love that because again, like I want to be able to. I want my clients to know what they're getting,
Mm-hmm.
they're investing on, and the best way to do that, I feel, is to be able to thoroughly explain. Like, this is what we're going to paint, this is what we're going to use to paint that with, this is how long it's going to take, like, and it's just like common questions that I think any homeowner might want to obviously or appreciate knowing before you
Mm-hmm.
actually show up at their house, right? And then there's
Yeah.
miscommunication, and then there's he said, she said, over promising type of thing, and you know how that always ends up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that as far as the detailed. All right, well, let's switch gears just a little bit. At this moment in your journey, what would you say about working with your spouse? And we love Jose, by the way. Love Jose. He's a big teddy bear. But
oh
in
man.
all seriousness, this is a huge topic. At some of the Women in Paint events, this always surfaces. I mean,
Mhm.
it is in depth. And obviously you could talk about this. You could have a 10 episodes talking about this. But on some level you must enjoy it. You're still hanging in there. But really, what maybe if you give a tip, how do you navigate this? Do you turn off the work life to family life? Is there such a thing? Why don't we just start with that? Can you actually turn it off, or is it kind of always intertwined?
I have a hard time turning it off. I really
Yeah.
do. He's definitely a lot better than I am, but I think that I'm in this high of, I'm overloaded with all this information from all the trainings that I've attended, and the people
Yeah.
that I talk to, and the research that I do or whatnot, that I am like on a go, right? So I'm like, this is what we have to do, this and this and this and this. So when he comes home, like I'm like, okay, I need your attention. Like, can you show me this? Or like, what about this? And he's kind of like, like I don't want to talk about it. And
Mm.
then and I'm more like, no, but we have to, like, we need to, like, I need to turn this in, or like they're waiting for me on this, or whatever the case might be. But so I do need to work on that. I need to work on that to be able to, at a specific time. And I know other women, I think Danny mentioned something about how at a specific time she's just like, I'm done.
Mm.
Like, she doesn't check her emails. I don't think she even has her email on her personal phone, like her work email on her personal phone, which I definitely need to be better at that as well too. But I will say, jumping from being an educator and having a schedule of my own for 10 years into helping him grow this business, One of the things that has benefited me personally, and I think has helped our marriage, is that I find just this sort of like, and not that I didn't admire him, I don't want to say that, but like this admiration for him,
Yeah.
and just like this, I can't even, I don't know what the right word would be, but just thinking, because I think about it and I'm like, oh my gosh, like how was he able to run this for so long by himself? I'm like losing my mind and I'm not even
Right.
in the field, So it's like that, like just admiration of all that he's been able to accomplish on his own, because I had no idea like what he really dealt with on a daily basis, right? Like I was more like, okay, you're coming home late. Like we needed to, I needed you here
Yeah.
like 30 minutes ago when this went through a fit, right? And so it's like being more understanding of his day to day. And I feel like
Mhm.
that has also allowed me to kind of back off a little bit and,
Sure.
allow him to, because I've even told him, like, I'm like, I feel so bad now because now that I know what you deal with on a daily basis, I feel bad about the times that you would come home late and I would be like, what? You missed X, Y, and Z, or like, why are you here so late? Or like, like just dumping all my frustration when in reality, like you were coming with an overload as well too. So
Right.
that's one thing that I will say has benefited my transition into working with him, is just being able to admire like his skills and all the effort that he has put into the business in itself, and the fact that it's been able to sustain us for this long without really being fully structured, right? Like
Yeah.
we were like literally like walking on water most of the time. So
Right. I love that. That's really sweet. So working together has helped you develop this admiration for all that he's done. I love
mhm,
that. That's so sweet.
yeah.
All right. Before we wrap up, let's talk quickly about what being involved in Women in Paint has done for you. The connection, the events. Is it something you would recommend? Talk to me about your experience with Women in Paint through the PCA.
It's been truly empowering.
Yeah.
I talk about this all the time when I meet with I have other friends that own businesses not in the painting, but I'm just like, get plugged in. I was so, and like I said, I took this as a sign. I was so fortunate to be able to go to Nashville and be part of the first Women in Paint. That in itself was just like an eye opener, because not only was I able to see other women in this field, right, but I was able to connect with them. That's when, and you and I connected over your mom's story of being an educator, right?
Mhm.
And then I connected with Sarah. She was sitting right next to me. I didn't know she was going to present. And whenever, I think I can't remember who mentioned, raise your hand if you are wanting to mentor other people. And Sarah raised her hand, and I just happened to be sitting next to her, and I was like, okay, you're gonna have to mentor me, please,
There you
And so
go.
I was like, don't look for anybody else, I'm right here. And she was so cool. Like and I was so grateful. Like I was like, because she's got a background as a CPA. And so
Yeah.
I was like, Sarah, like, please help me. Like, I think our QuickBooks is messed up. Like, I have no idea what's going on, but like, can you
Mhm.
take a look? And so I can't tell you how many times we've really met over Zoom. And it was always I never felt rushed. I always had a list of questions because I want to be respectful of her time too. So I had like a list of questions, and I remember she'd be like, "Do you have anything else? Like this, was there anything else you wanted to mention, or like, did you have a question about anything else?" And she was just so opening to being able to say, okay, ask me, and I
Yeah.
definitely took advantage of that. So that was very empowering, because I will be honest, if I don't think if I think if I wouldn't have gone and actually like seen other women and heard their stories from how they started with, just them painting and turning their hobby into a successful business, I really think I would have at some point, with all the other stress that I was dealing with, I would have been like, you know what? No, let me just go back to what I know, right? And I'm
Yeah.
comfortable. So
Absolutely.
it's truly been amazing to be able to be able to just come close to other women that are supportive of each other in the same field. Like, to me, that's like mind blowing, right?
It's
Because
amazing, right?
it is.
I mean, Karen, I swear when I go to these events and see all these women, they're such badasses. Like just doing their thing. I mean, Sarah Ross, who you were talking about from Fresh Coat, she's one of them. She's a powerhouse. And it's like, man, it's so inspiring, right?
It's so inspiring. It really is. And to be able, because I think about it and I'm like, oh my gosh, if she can do it, like I can do it, right? Or
Yeah.
and especially just having that relationship of being able to share all of the things that you have learned, right?
Mhm,
Knowing that you've made quite a few mistakes in your journey, right? Like I
mhm.
talk about like the mistakes we made when we grew too fast and we didn't have the right people in place, you know? So now it's kind of like, okay, if I need help, like I know who to go with. And I know that it's going to be genuine help, that it's going to be, they're going to really like pour into me without me
Mhm.
giving them anything in return. You see what I'm saying? Like this is,
Absolutely.
I think this is what is so powerful about just this movement in general, is being able to have a space, a safe space for
Mhm.
people to pretty much say, hey, I messed up. Like, I didn't do things right. Like, here are the areas that I need help with. Anybody know how to help? And then for other women to say, like, oh yeah, let me help you. Like, this is what I did, or you should try this, or you should talk to this person, right? So I just find it super empowering. I think it's so awesome that there's a space for women in particular, because this is a male dominated
Mhm.
industry, right? So for us in women in this industry to be able to network together and help each other up is just, it's just truly empowering.
It is. And I like what you said. It's a movement. That's how I feel about
Mhm.
it. All right. Last but not least, my friend, um, what do you do to take care of Karen so that you can show up for all your girls? You have 4 daughters. It's a lot of girls in one house.
Girls.
Well, I see you, Jose, over there with all these girls. What do you do to take care of yourself so you can show up, you can be a mom, you can be a business owner, a wife, all the other roles, all the other hats? What do you do to take care of Karen?
Oh man, I that's so funny that you say that, because I literally try to leave my house sometimes. And it's so funny because like the little ones are just, they're just so like they are literally like, they both kind of feed off of each other. So just having the two little ones is like having 10 kids, right? And so I try to like leave on like these like errand runs, and I will leave him with the girls, and I'll be like, hey, I'll be right back. Like, I'm not gonna take long, and then it's like 2 hours later, he's blowing me up. He's like, where are you? But I definitely think that like trying to have some alone time has
Yeah.
definitely helped. And that and I found that from listening to podcasts and like obviously like seeing all these influencers, and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
I woke up at 5 in the morning and this is all the things I was able to get done. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like
No.
I go to bed like at 1. So I think being able to find things that work for me and not necessarily be on a time schedule, right? Because not every day doesn't look the same for me.
Yep.
So just being able to, if I can wake up in the morning and spend some time on my own, then that's great. If I can do it at night, that's great. But I do try, because I will say, coming from, the mental health world, I can't tell you enough like how important it is to be able to just like sit and listen to your thoughts, especially when you
Yeah.
have a household as crazy as ours. Like I don't like, sometimes I'm like, who's talking, so is it my thoughts, is like who's talking?
Oh my
So
gosh, you're hilarious. You're so hilarious to me. So alone time, and you find a way to protect that, even if you have to sneak out of the
Mhm.
house for a few minutes. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. And I think it's important to note that, yeah, you see these influencers that are waking up at 5 a.m. and that might work for them, but they also might not have 4 kids at home, right? So you have to, I think you have to do what works for you. All right, Miss Karen, our time is up. I told you I could sit here and talk to you all day and laugh at all the hilarious things that you say. But we will do this again. I have a feeling that you're going to be back, and hopefully you can help me with our Spanish episode. So join us here next time. Keep an eye out for any Women in Paint events. We will see you here next time.
Thank you for joining us on Women in Paint. We hope you feel compelled to follow your own path and use your compassion, strength, and skills to build a career in the paint industry. And if you like this episode as much as we did, give it a simple click to subscribe so we can invite you back to our next episode. And be sure to share it on all your socials. Remember, Women in Paint, stir up more than just a can of eggshell.